All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. But we're going to have a show.
What up, everybody? Welcome. Oh, this is exciting. This is my superhero lair in Washington, D.C. I've come here because of some illness. I can talk to you more about that in a moment. We'd like to be forthcoming on this show and tell you what's happening, so I'll do that in that spirit. But before I do, let me bring in, this is my Brock Purdy. Everybody needs a Brock Purdy in their life. Somebody who comes off the bench. You know, when the main quarterback goes down, jogs in, there's uncertainty. There are questions. Can she do it? Is she up to it? And then she smokes so good. Here she is, Kim McAllister, everybody. Come on, Kim.
Yep, I'm partying it up.
You did such a great job with the show the last few days. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Albert for being, he's the captain of the ship always.
Yep.
There. So Albert, thank you. And although I thought you could have produced some applause for Kim there, I'm just saying it's a little early for an error. But all right, you decided not to do it.
With the background music, Mark, I can't play two audios.
Oh, okay. So, you know what then? My fault. So
let's blame Tony for some reason he's not here. Let's just blame Tony.
Damn it!
My bad. I'm sorry.
Albert's right. When he's playing one element, he can't go to okay. So now with the music down, let me welcome a guy who is an award-winning journalist. And when I say award-winning, Jim Avila, former senior correspondent at ABC News, former White House correspondent for many years. He has five Edward R. Murrow Awards.
What?
All right. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, Emmys, he's stepping over Emmys to put the Murrows up on the mantelpiece. A remarkably gifted and talented journalist. And it's such an honor to have him in our mix. And he's been helping Kim out and continues to help the show out. He's a friend of the show. He's Jim Avila, everybody. So how about it? A warm welcome for Jim.
Good morning. Look at that, some applause. I don't have any theme music though, but it's okay. Maybe we can get. It's nice. It's only taken
a couple of days to come up with a list of demands, which is very nice.
I'm surprised there's not a Murrow Award on every tabletop behind you, like an Emmy, just sitting out on.
I can pull them out, but I won't. But I can.
Yeah, the one that I noticed this the other day. He's self-effacing, he's polite to the point that he's he doesn't take
who I am? Kind of a big deal.
All right, now he's going to.
Is he showing me his Emmy, or is he closing the door? I don't know what he's doing.
No, I'm going to show you the one I'm actually most proud of.
Oh, okay, good. Here he comes. What you got there?
And then I'll tell you why awards.
The one that said that
I love your shirt says press on it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's from the White House.
That's a Peabody Award, is that?
That's a Peabody Award.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a Peabody.
That's nice.
What
did you get that?
Now, what was the Peabody? What is the Peabody Award for, Jim Avila?
It was for a coverage of operation of the Superstorm Sandy. On the roof of the building at ABC, and along with everybody else. This was the award that I was the lead reporter on coverage that won that award for ABC. So I got one with my name on it, which is pretty cool.
I love that.
That is very cool. I mean, look,
that one of the great things I do pull out on occasion
is the
I mean, if an attacker came in, that's not the one you would use to clock him in the head. There's others for that.
And
there's much.
I've had the same girlfriend for 2 years, so I haven't had to pull it out to show it.
To impress
anybody recently, no. So
I am duty bound to tell you that we have a few things going on today. Jefferson Graham Tech Thursday. He's going to, among other things, Kim, you were saying that he's going to touch on everywhere you can see the Oscar-nominated films, right?
Yeah, he's going to go take us down the list of all the best film nods for Oscar this year, and where you can see them. What are they on HBO Max? Are they
Right,
in the theater?
streamed.
What's the story? So he's going to give us streaming tips.
And
there's never been anything like this.
I've got a couple notes.
That's coming up at 10:35. And then at 11, of course, David Katz on Thursdays joins. He's the brilliant former assistant attorney, U.S. attorney. So he prosecuted every imaginable crime on behalf of the feds. Now he's a defense attorney. Now he's defending every imaginable crime.
How the tables have turned. Yes.
I mean, exactly. Right. So he will join us at 11 o'clock. Yeah. And then Belinda joins us with It's the Planet Stupid at 11:35. And something of a scandal in California related to the environment. So we'll get to all of that. I may have to bounce in about a half hour. So we'll see how all of that goes. I'm back here because my dad's not doing well. So that's it's a bad reason to have come back here. But it's also, I think it's a great opportunity to be here when you're needed. So that's what I'm doing. So, he was stronger apparently this morning, and I'm going to go over there as soon as we're done here, and we'll see. But he's not in the best of shape. So it's it happens suddenly. It's a weird thing. Life is so precious, of course, and it changes just in an instant. So anyway, thanks for understanding that I'm not here quite with the through line I would be normally, but we'll be back to normal. The plan is for us to be completely back to normal by middle of next week, by Wednesday next week. So, Kim, you've done a nice job of recognizing Steve Moskowitz, who is our lead and founding exclusive sponsor. Yeah. 888 Tax Deal. He is someone who can help you prepare taxes. He's someone who can help you avoid having to pay more than you have to within the boundaries of the law. Steve can do things for you that you may never have conceived of. So 888 Tax Deal, 888 also MoskowitzLLP.com, helping Bay Area, California, and across the country, Americans with taxes, with business, and with planning for over 30 years. Steve
doesn't matter what state.
Tax Deal. No.
Anywhere, wherever you are, he's got you.
So Kim wanted to start with this major announcement. I mean, it's not a major announcement in the.
It's not a Mark Thompson major announcement.
Not a Mark Thompson show major announcement.
And it was lackluster when he came out and made the announcement this morning that there was no major announcement drop. I think everyone really needs that when they come out and do such a thing. But yes, Congressman Adam Schiff says he will be running for Senator Dianne Feinstein's Senate seat. He says he talked to her yesterday. That she's not ready to make any announcement herself, but she said she was okay with him running. So now we've got Schiff, who joins Katie Porter, who already announced. And the thought is that Barbara Lee will be jumping in, and Ro Khanna may jump in to this race as well. So you've got some pretty well-known Democrats that are already in the battle for this one.
It's a rugby scrum for this seat. It's an important seat. And it's one that you can hang on to for a long time, witness Dianne Feinstein. But it's a little early, isn't it, Jim, to really have a sense of where the institutional Democrats may land? I suppose maybe Schiff would be that person, given the fact that he was given a blessing by Feinstein.
Yeah, I think he starts out right now as the front runner because of name recognition alone. Barbara Lee is also very popular among Democrats on the progressive side. I think she has some traction there. But Schiff, he's a niche politician now because he took on Trump so boldly. But he's fortunate in that the niche is California. California is in his pocket. I think pretty much people really do appreciate in a large fashion here in California the fact that he put his reputation, his name on the line, stood up to a guy who was trying to ruin the country. So I think that does help him. I think that, and as you say, the senator from California is a big deal. This is a big, the last one was Kamala Harris, who was who's now the vice president. So, this is a stepping stone for a lot of people. I'm not so sure it would work for him that way. There's also questions, some people are wondering whether or not Gavin Newsom will jump into it as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of saying maybe he'd make a good senator instead of running for president. I would just make, with Newsom, and we got a lot of pushback on this yesterday, but I believe that he is a great spokesman for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And whether he runs or not, I would love to see him continue to be in the foreground in pushing those issues that he does, that he is for. And I think he does a real
well. That's an
good
interesting
job.
way to put it.
You know,
I mean, it really. I think in your wording, you underscore the fact that Newsom says the right thing, and he says it well. And the right thing, it's important that it be said, and it's important that it be said well. So when you call him a great spokesperson for progressive causes, that reflects that. When you talk about his viability as a politician beyond governor, and you talk about his viability, or the implied conversation we'd have about his viability as a national candidate, that's a much different conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we see that is with Elizabeth Warren too. Similar situation where she's very popular in the progressive wing, but will she, and even Bernie to some degree, will either one of those ever really achieve the presidency? And that time is running out for them more so than with Gavin Newsom. But Newsom has the same issues. Plus, here in California, we may know him a little too well. These, what I think are petty and kind of minor quote unquote scandals that he's been involved in. The eating at the fancy restaurant, the French Laundry, during the outbreak, and also, I guess he had some issues with a former wife as far as infidelity or whatever. Come on, infidelity is going to be an issue against the Republicans? How is that going to be with Donald Trump as the other candidate? How
but
is he
everyone
ever
else
going to attack?
No one is held to, Trump is held to a different set of standards. It's something I've never understood. What's okay for Trump isn't okay for everyone else. And the sex scandal at San Francisco City Hall was really something to behold. It was his chief of staff's wife they were all friends. I mean, it's kind of an icky situation.
There's never been
you got to
anything
meet people
like
where
this.
you meet them, Kim. I mean, I'm just saying, okay?
The
What
heart
do you want to be?
wants what it wants.
But
exactly.
It's interesting when you talk about Gavin Newsom, the people that are Democrats that seem to be angry at Gavin Newsom, they're not angry about his sex scandal from years past. They're angry mostly about what they see as him not standing up for people and instead rubber stamping PG&E decisions. So
by the way, Jim, this is an important point Kim is making, because this goes to what I was saying about what you said. The spokesperson thing is exactly the problem with Gavin Newsom, some would say, that he says the right thing and he says the right thing well, but then he doesn't always do the right thing. And his coziness with PG&E, his coziness with the healthcare providers, coziness perhaps dictated by various political needs in terms of donations, et cetera. I mean, these are flaws in our system, but that coziness has really gone against some of what the talk he talks. The walk he walks is a little more trouble. I guess that's what I was saying before as well.
Yeah, but I would, just to push back a little bit, I would say that he won 2 elections in the last 2 years by landslides.
Yeah.
So while yes, there's always somebody who's going to pick at you, and there's always going to be somebody who's not happy, and you're not true enough. You're not, you don't pass every test. When it comes down to an election, he has clobbered people, not even been close in these elections. So
in California,
have a Democrat in California. Right.
Right.
I think his bigger problem nationwide is not any scandals or not the PG&E issue, and the fact that he has been kind to donors. I think nationwide he is viewed as a California elite. That's the more pressing issue he has as a national candidate.
Which is wild, because if you look at elite, it's Trump all the way. I mean, here's a guy who inherited money, who's, never really wanted for anything, who's got mansion after mansion. Look at Mar-a-Lago. You want to talk elite? But how Trump has become the everyman just because when he opens his mouth, he sounds like a drunk guy at the end of the bar spouting nonsense. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he was gifted millions at the beginning of his adult life. I mean, even prior to that, that's exactly right. But here's what Trump did, and this is the magic trick. And you're so right to underscore it, I think, Kim. He basically said, I'm using this effed up system to get ahead, and the system is effed up, and I will represent your interests because I know how to work this system, and I know how to work it because I've been working it for years. And this is the magic trick, that he was able to sell that BS and then go right back in and work the system some more. And then, of course, once he became president, he worked the system even more, I mean, a whole other system to his own benefit. But that he was able to say, I know the system screwed up because I work within it and can see how screwed up it is, and I'm going to go to Washington and change it. I'm going to be your advocate. That was a bizarre jujitsu he did that worked on enough people who were frustrated and who realized, as we all do, that the system is flawed. It worked enough to propel him to the presidency. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was just going to say that I think what he really did, what his ability was, he tapped into the hate that is in a third to 40% of America, that is afraid that they're losing their America, that the America they dominated for the entire entire history of this country, that they were losing it. And let's make America great again. Let's bring the white people back in charge. And they're afraid of the diversity that this country is, the diverse country we've become. And Donald Trump tapped into that and wrote it all the way to the White House. And there was a period of time, there was a lot of things. Hillary Clinton was not a great candidate. Here we go again. Hillary Clinton was not a great candidate. That was an issue. So those are the problems that those are the things he tapped into. And while you do that, I'm going to find out why this computer's doing this.
The last thing that I will just mention, because we did touch on Trump, because I just was reading about this morning. The ideologies and the philosophies, I mean, Trump's interest in being president wasn't underpinned by any kind of ideology or philosophy, as you know, but those that became the Trump administration mantras and the drumbeats, anti-immigrant, populist doctrine, etc. Those are still very popular. And so Republicans increasingly, and they're kind of coming out of the weeds now to talk about this, are not taking issue with any Trump policies per se. They're taking issue with Trump because he can't do what? He can't win. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason, the party is moving away from him. In straw poll after straw poll, DeSantis beats Trump. And so it's likely that, and this is, again, what I was reading about with all kinds of polling information and quotes from a high-profile, off-the-record, high-profile GOP. They're done with Trump because he's not viewed as someone who can actually win anymore. So I wanted to ask you...
so sayonara, Tim, sucker.
He's still fundraising, but it definitely...
of course he is.
Life's changing, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, smash the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash the like button if you're watching from wherever you're watching in replay, whatever. We put this together. We'll be a little bit with Kim where she is, Jim where he is, and me where I am for the next few days. But it's so great to have you in the mix with us, and we appreciate the likes. Helps us in
Absolutely.
the algorithm, and of course, any support you can throw our way helps us pay the bills. I did want to get to the Half Moon Bay shootings and the shootings in Monterey Park. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
the Half Moon Bay shootings, it's all incredibly disturbing. But the description as to how this guy worked and how he went in and he smiled almost gleefully as he shot round after round, killed people. He killed one guy who he had shot. He was the second person that he had shot. And as he rose to his feet to run away, he shot him again. And he got into a forklift. He was laughing and smiling, according to a couple of witnesses. It's all the stuff of a horror film, you know?
Yep.
And then Kim was telling me this morning about the conditions there in Half Moon Bay. Kim, can you relate some of what you were telling me? It's crazy. I mean,
there's a
it
story.
reminds you of the workers he was preying upon. Go ahead.
There's a story in the Chronicle this morning, San Francisco Chronicle, about how the suspect in this case lived and worked on this farm, and he was a forklift driver for 5 or 6 years, and he lived out on the farm as well. And the story in the Chronicle talks about the shooting highlighting the poor conditions people are living in on these farms. Apparently, these workers are living in shipping containers. And I don't mean, you see the shipping containers on the HGTV that they've been converted into fancy tiny homes. And I don't mean those now. I mean shipping containers. That's where they're living. Put a mattress in there, done. They're living out in shipping containers out on these farms. And so, you have these people that are doing hard physical work, that are living in conditions that are less than desirable out there. So I don't know how that plays in, except to say
that's a very nice way to put it. Less than desirable. You're right.
Yeah.
These are people who are living on it's sort of the underside of employment, right? Many undocumented, many hand to mouth, and living in squalor. And the idea somehow that these people now have to fear for their lives in this already deeply troubled, sick workplace.
Well, and what police are saying now is that Mr. Zhao, the suspect in this case, intentionally targeted the victims that died in this attack, that were shot in this attack, that it was an ongoing feud, according to detectives telling ABC7, that 8 people were shot, right? 7 killed, I think 1 still hospitalized. And they were all involved in this ongoing feud. So he knew who he was going after, according to police.
Unlike the Monterey Park shooter, who it would appear was a loner, disaffected, disgusted with everything. I mean, sort of something of a classic profile.
Yeah.
Angry at his community, angry at the world. And his killings were a bit more on the random side from everything I'm reading.
But also had a history of violence against a roommate, had threatened the roommate, had allegedly tried to suffocate the roommate with a pillow, and there was some type of restraining order at one point, I believe. Restraining order filed against him by a former coworker and roommate. So there was a history of violence here, and I wonder if he wouldn't have been a prime candidate for this red flag law. Here's a guy with a pattern of anger, a pattern of abuse against coworkers, who in recent days, you probably could tell, was escalating. And so was this the moment to call and say, look, I think we got a problem. And that's the problem with the red flag law. Even here in California, people don't know about it. So.
Yeah. And somebody has to flag it is the problem. And apparently nobody did. Just to pick up on Kim's point about the conditions down there in Half Moon Bay. So just a little bit of a personal experience. My family on my mother's side, my grandfather immigrated to this country from Mexico and was a farm worker for many years. And, during the summer, even when they had their own patch of land that they sharecropped here in Los Angeles, they would go to the Central Valley in the summertime they had 8 children, including my mother, and they would go and and live in these trailer parks and things like that, and they would make money for during the summer to carry them over through the winter. And because of that heritage, when I started at KCBS radio in San Francisco, one of the first quote unquote sweeps pieces that I did, special series that I did when I was 20 years old, is I went and worked in the garlic fields of Gilroy as undercover, quote unquote undercover, and lived in there. And I was able to take it for 2 days. That was as much as I can handle. It was the work was unbearable. Yeah, there you go. The work was unbearable, leaning over and bending over and picking the garlic and snipping it off with those scissors. And then at the end of the day, you go into this area where it's sort of a big cafeteria like, and they serve you food that's not great food. And then you sleep in dormitories back then. And I think they've improved them a little bit because of stories like this. But I can just tell you that is not a good life. That experience is very, very difficult. And that's what I always kind of laugh when people laugh derisively when people say they're taking our jobs. You don't want those jobs, and nobody in this country really wants those jobs or will work for those jobs. It's that's why they're having such problems in the Midwest with finding employees to work at those meatpacking plants and work at those in those farms. These conditions are horrendous, and people don't want to work there.
Well, just to,
does it excuse somebody getting very upset and shooting people up? No, it doesn't. But the conditions for both sides are just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the shooting people up and disaffected and shooting people up and becoming violent. I'll put that to the side for the moment because I think that reflects other aspects of our society related to a society that's awash in guns, and with every ill feeling you have, you're only an arm's length from a firearm, and you can turn it on yourself. I mean, in the form of suicide, or you can turn it on others, or both. But I remember reading a piece about, just to what Jim's saying, and then we'll take a break. Kim's News and Jefferson Graham still to come. I remember reading a piece about just what you're talking about, Jim. In the Central Valley, they were looking for Americans. This had to do with illegal immigration and how illegal immigration fuels so much of the Central Valley's crop, And there was one farm that was committed to hiring Americans, and they jacked the hourly wage way up. I mean, at the time, I forget, it might have been 3 times the existing wage or something that made it attractive from an hourly wage standpoint. And they had Americans actually sign up, people who were legal citizens, and they worked in the fields. I think it was the strawberries. Strawberries stick in my head. And this was not only an experiment, it was really something they were trying to do, hire American citizens to work the fields. They also wanted to see, if they could improve conditions sufficiently so that they could hire legal citizens. Mm-hmm. So they hire these people, and they said the average worker, Jim made me think of it with his story. The average worker, new hire, again, with nicer conditions, great pay, lasted 2 weeks. The conditions are so tough. I'm talking about the conditions of your work are so grueling that most Americans just won't do the work. Most people who have the option, when I say most Americans, most legal citizens, there is a gray market there that is undeniable, I think. So we take a break for Kim's News. When we come back, Jefferson Graham joins us. I'll see if I can hang out for another half hour or so, which would be really great. But Kim, thank you in advance for all your, all your great work on the show. And thanks everybody
you for taking time to hop in today. I know you're going through some stuff, so.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff with family and all the rest, but I'm going to see if I can't buy us another half hour here. And thank you for supporting the show and continuing to support us during this time. It's a little bit of a hiccup, but Jim is a magnificent co-host to Kim, so I'm
superstar.
Kind of things in good hands. Yeah, but anyway, I'll hang out for a little bit longer, and Kim's News Next, and we did bring, did we not, the over-the-top news theme? So without any further delay.
Yes.
Thanks for being here. All right. Kim's News Next.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's get right to it because the recent mass shootings in California have Democrats in the state legislature now ramping up discussions about tougher gun laws. Some of the ideas have already been instituted in cities and counties, among them videotaped gun sales. That's the rule in San Jose and in San Francisco. They also do it at Walmart stores. More than 24 California jurisdictions have restricted gun sales near schools and other sensitive areas. The city of Davis requires gun buyers show proof they own a safe. San Jose is the first city in the nation to require gun owners carry liability insurance. Now, California's tougher concealed carry permit requirement was struck down by the Supreme Court, but state lawmakers, they're going to revisit that, even though, right? A bill in the committee would allow residents to add their own names to the state's do not sell list, which restricts the sale of firearms to specific individuals. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is taking Republicans to task, you could say, over debt ceiling negotiations. Conservatives are demanding spending cuts as a price for lifting the debt ceiling and averting a default. Jeffries says failing to pay the federal government's bills will result in big problems for everyday Americans. And he says extreme MAGA Republicans want to slash Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits, but Republicans are divided over whether entitlement spending should be on the chopping block. The U.S. hit its debt limit, of course, last week. Treasury Department imposed measures to cover the debt until early June, but Democrats have called on Republicans to raise that limit without conditions. Kind of a sad day to mark. It is 3 years to the day since basketball legend Kobe Bryant and his daughter and 7 other people died in a helicopter crash in Southern California. A lot going on in the city of Memphis, Tennessee as well. They're bracing for the release of body cam footage showing the violent arrest of a black man during a traffic stop. Here we go again, right? Tyree Nichols died in the hospital just days after this incident on January 7th, in which Memphis Police Chief Cyrillin Davis is called inhumane. Today, Davis pleaded with her community not to react with violence or destruction when the video camera footage comes out. The 5 Memphis police officers involved in this attack, who are also black, by the way, have all been fired. More layoffs. Every day there's another one coming in the tech industry. So this time it is IBM and SAP, the latest tech companies to reduce their workforce. Europe's largest software company, SAP, says it will slash 2,800 jobs. IBM saying it will let go of 3,900 workers. Of course, the job cuts follow word last week of layoffs by big tech companies like Google's parent company, Alphabet, and Microsoft. Here's a story for you as well. This one, I still haven't seen this show just because I don't like the death and the killing. But I will say that Netflix is having to defend freezing temperatures on the set of its Squid Game reality series. Apparently, the set saw contestants sustain injuries while trying to compete in below zero temperatures, the streaming giant pushing back against claims that players were severely injured during production in England. Netflix says they care deeply about the health and safety of their cast, and they say any claims of serious injury are just untrue. That's
so you're saying that the Squid Games itself, which I did see, and it's kind of this that, as many people who saw it know, it is gory, and I think you made maybe the right call not to see it because it's pretty brutal. But having said that, it's this marathon of various events that are all where the people risking their lives and pushing themselves to the very brink. Right? You're saying that the shooting of the movie or the shooting of the series actually pushes the actors to the very brink. You're saying that it's really life imitating the very art that they're trying to shoot. That's wild.
Well, whatever games
Wild idea, but it just might work.
whatever games they're trying to play over there in the Squid Games, they're having to do it in the extra cold, below 0 temperatures, and the allegations are, being denied by Netflix, that people that are starring in the show competing in these temperatures are getting seriously injured. So,
well, here's the other thing I would say, and you can tell from your picture that if those watching on YouTube or maybe listening to the podcast, it's a picture of one of the Squid Games principal actors, if you want to think of it that way, with a mask on, and then a bunch of these are extras, okay, other people in the scene. Those people are making no money, okay, and the fact that they have to stand there waiting for the shot to start in sub-zero temperatures, wow. This is I think it's kind of a big story in a way. I mean, within that world, that's a big story.
It's all in the name of entertainment, so we can have something to watch on Netflix. A couple people get injured. Move on. Carry on.
Shout out.
This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. If you need help with ye old taxes, you got to call Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. He's also online. You'll see the website spelled out coming up right now. It's MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show with Mark Thompson.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kim. I'm going to try to hang for another half hour. I'm here in Washington, D.C. Dad not doing so well, so I've come back here to be with family. So, but it's great to be able to participate even remotely. Somebody who's helped me so much, in this world of YouTube, get this show started. We needed kind of a consigliere, you know what I mean? Kind of an ongoing counsel, someone who had some experience, and sadly we still need him for various YouTube things. It's a wild dance we continue to do with YouTube, but he is someone who was the tech writer for USA Today for over 30 years, and he does his Photo Walks TV, and he joins us on Thursday. We call it Tech Thursdays. He's Jefferson Graham, everybody. Come on, put it together for Jefferson Graham.
I thought that because we spent the last half hour talking about things that aren't so much fun, maybe we play a few theme songs at the front, lighten up things a little bit before we start
Jeff,
talking about.
Do me a favor.
Yeah.
Don't try to produce the show, okay?
Okay.
Just, You come here, you give us tech things. At the end, we do the themes. I don't like it when the guests come in and they. No, I'm kidding. It's fine. Yeah, we can do something.
Okay. Well, here, if anybody is an aspiring guitar player, here's one of the easiest songs to play. Watch my fingers. See on the chords, I didn't change anything. Does everybody not know this?
That's the Jeopardy thing.
But did you see that?
Yeah.
Did you see how I never changed? I didn't do anything with my fingers. Anyway, so we all know that song.
Why can't every song on the guitar be like that? Then I would play.
Wouldn't that be
you
something?
didn't have to move your fingers at all.
Okay.
It's all the finger movements that have really frustrated me.
One more, and then we'll talk about the Oscars and streaming. How many notes will it take to get this song?
Three's Company?
Kim wins the award.
Oh, you get nothing.
Nice.
There's never been anything like this.
Very nicely done.
You actually have to use your fingers on it, though.
Yeah.
As I was saying, if you could do an album of those TV themes, and it just all sounds so romantic. I mean, TV themes sound romantic when played on the guitar acoustically like that. It's wild.
I've been doing it for a while. Yeah, this is how I learned how to play the guitar. I just sat there with watching TV, playing along with the songs. Yeah. But anyway, hey, the Oscars were nominated yesterday, right?
Well, and say hi to Jim Avila, who's an award-winning journalist. But he's got, even though he's broken big, hard news stories, he's able to talk about other stuff. That's what we love.
Okay, hi, Jim.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm
I
good.
need you to help me turn off the notifications on my computer. That's
Oh yeah, we do.
problem.
So Jeff, literally, was it yesterday? All the days are running together. I'm listening to the show, and Jim and Kim are really rocking. Like they're talking about something substantial, talking about something important. I'm going, this is great. We can break this out as a separate video. And then this dinging starts happening, but it's happening a lot, right? And
hey, he just brought his own dings to the party. It's all right.
And but he's dinging all the time. And I'm thinking, oh my God.
At inappropriate times, yeah.
Yeah, not only can I not break this out as a video, but it's, yeah. How does he do it?
Do you have a Mac or Windows?
It's a Mac.
Okay. Who are you getting the notifications from?
These are mostly text. Mostly text. It'll probably start now because my friends who are listening will start bothering me.
Who isn't he getting the notorifications from?
Because you go into system settings and you just turn them all off, and maybe we'll go offline and I'll help you on this.
Yeah,
but
it's such a good idea not to have done this yesterday. And to do it live on the air with us now, really good.
I have a rule: I don't want any notifications, and the phone. It's a lot of work on, and everything is in settings to get rid of them.
But if you I know you're the expert, Jefferson Graham, but let me give Jim a little workaround in this moment. If you quit out of mail, if you quit out of the messages, just quit them completely, you won't get the notifications. So that's
a good help, and Facebook too. Yeah, because Facebook's notorious.
What's happened is a handful of people that and Jim, has these adolescent type friends who are like, they like to mess with him. They see
hey, wait, you're one of those friends. I don't know what you're saying.
No, I'm not really. I'm actually far more sophisticated and together than the rest of his group.
Okay, Jim, mail. Do you have iMessages open also?
Yeah, I'm trying to close it now. So.
Okay, so you close iMessages.
Anyway, I shouldn't have mentioned Jim. I shouldn't have mentioned them at all.
Show. Yeah.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
All right.
I think I just got a taste of a Sunday afternoon at your house.
So anyway, the Oscars were announced this week, and I find it really, really interesting that only one of the nominated movies is playing in the theater at this point. Only one.
Wow.
Okay. And that would be Avatar. Now, everybody knew going into it that this Everything Everywhere All at Once was going to be a big, get a lot of nominations. You can't find it in a theater. In San Francisco, it is in one. In LA, it's in one. And it's really interesting. How would you watch it? So you could pay $20 to watch it on TV, on Vudu or YouTube or Amazon Prime, or you could subscribe to Showtime. For those of us who've been around for a while, Showtime has been the historical number 2 to HBO. Never as classy, never as good, but it was just the number 2 service. I never even considered subscribing, but I want to see this movie. Now, to subscribe to Showtime is $11. To watch Everything All at Once on Vudu is $20. So you say, which is the better deal? And there's a free 30-day trial. So
I knew you were going to get to that. I love that.
Right. So 30-day trial.
This is Jefferson Graham's great tip they gave us last year, and I'd forgotten it until just now.
30-day free trial. Sign up today and then unsubscribe later that day. It'll stay.
Exactly.
You'll still get the 30 days, and you won't forget, and they won't ding you in charging you a monthly fee. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll let you know how Showtime is. I've looked on the website a few times. I didn't find much to watch there, but I do want to see this movie. And the other thing,
but the downside though is, Jefferson, the downside is then you have to watch that movie. I have tried 3 times to watch that movie and can't get through the first half an hour without turning.
Oh, okay. So it's a turkey.
And I know it's it's the rave. Everybody loves it, but I watch a lot of stuff because I'm retired now, but I could not get through it.
And you saw it at home?
Yes, on Showtime.
Oh, so you signed up for Showtime? Okay, because the
Big shout out.
The thing that drives me crazy is if you pay the $6 or $20 or whatever, and they give you 24 to 48 hours to watch it. And at home, I can't do it. I just can't get through it. I don't know, but I think Kim is the youngest person in the room. Kim, can you get through it when they give you 48 hours to see the movie?
Oh yeah, I'm on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially if the whole reason I signed up for a service is to see that thing, then I'm seeing that thing.
Tim says if you have Prime, you have Showtime. Is that right?
No, not true. If you have Prime, you have the ability.
Tim.
You have the ability to subscribe to Showtime via Prime and have Prime take your money, but you do not get Showtime for free. Amazon has a bunch of channels that they offer. They're basically the bank.
It's too much.
Jennifer says, Jim, stick with it. Stick with it.
Just
Jim.
let it take you, Jim. It's very out of the box, but if you stick with it, it all falls into place. Stick with it, Jim. Go with it.
This whole streaming thing was supposed to save us money, right? I mean, we were supposed to cut the cord from Comcast or cable or the dish or whatever it was you had, and we're going to streaming now. But after you pay for Netflix, you pay for Amazon Prime, you pay for HBO Max, you're paying for Disney Plus. Like it's not a money saver.
A little bit. It's a little bit, but here's my way of doing it. If there's something I want to watch, I'll subscribe. I'll watch it, I'll unsubscribe. And so I rotate all the time. I had Paramount Plus, now I don't have Paramount Plus. I had HBO Max, now I don't have HBO Max.
Wait a minute.
I have Netflix, and there's no reason to have it at this
point. Wait a minute. First of all, I saw the Madoff documentary on Netflix, and I really liked it. I think there is stuff on Netflix, but let me just go back to what you said. This is because I love this plan. I think it's like one of the great hacks, but they're going to figure out a way to screw us on this. But what I'm asking is, haven't they already figured out a way to screw us? You're telling me that with all of their sophisticated algorithms, with all of their sophisticated ways to know how many times we've subscribed, how long we've watched, et cetera, what we've watched, they haven't been able to identify, hey, Jefferson Graham subscribes to our service, then unsubscribes the next day. And he's done that 8 times.
Well, it's a free country. I could subscribe and unsubscribe as much as I want as long as I pay. Right? I'm not doing anything illegal.
No, I'm not saying you're doing something illegal. I'm saying that there's the mothership of Showtime. Don't they bar you at some point from taking their 30-day trial over and over and over again?
No, welcome back. Well, no, the free trial, yes, but I said I pay a monthly fee. I paid for HBO Max. I paid for Paramount Plus.
But you just pay for the 1 month, you're saying?
Or whatever. I mean, the White Lotus took longer than a month. It was 6 weeks, so that was long.
But then you drop it after White Lotus is done. You're saying?
Yeah. So Netflix, I got for The Crown. And then we finished The Crown. I don't really have any reason to have it right now. I watched part of the Madoff thing. I was okay. I didn't think it was great. Didn't learn anything new.
This is brilliant. I'm the worst. I have everything, and I just and I don't watch it. I mean, I realized I have Paramount Plus just because I was coming here to Washington, and I thought, oh my gosh, I should watch something on the plane, and I'm looking around like, oh look, I've got Paramount Plus. It's $9.99. I didn't realize that I've been paying that monthly. So I like your plan more. Your plan is
well.
fine.
Let me give you another tip, which is pretty good. Some of the streaming services don't work if we live in the United States of America and then we travel to Canada or we travel to France or something like that. So you download everything before you leave, and then you watch it when you're on the road. And I don't know if you downloaded anything to watch on the plane, but it works really well. And no buffering and no Wi-Fi fees. You do that, Jim, right?
You download stuff.
Yeah, I whenever I travel, I usually download a few programs.
Yeah.
And but I have too many. The other thing that, Mark, for your problem with what you don't know what you're subscribing to, if you get one of those, I think it's called Rocket Money now. I did that, and it showed every subscription that I have. And I started canceling them because I didn't even know I had a lot of them.
Right. And
what do you recommend for that, Jeff? What do you like for that?
I used something like Jim used at one point, and I got rid of most of it. I don't have that many right now. So I have Amazon Prime just because of the shipping. And as far as the entertainment, it just rotates, and it will keep rotating with the show.
But to keep track of it, do you like that? Do you have a thought on that?
Well, no, because then they're charging you a subscription to monitor your subscriptions.
Yeah, okay.
Most of those services want a monthly fee.
Oh, that's great.
And
That's
it's
true,
really
I guess.
bad in the land of smartphone apps. And they say, oh, it's great. And it paid $3 a week. A week? Let me try it. You know, they don't even do the trials. A lot of them don't even do the trials anymore.
All right, so that's Everything Everywhere All at Once. How about the other ones?
Yeah, Top Gun is on Paramount Plus, or you could pay $5.99 to watch it. Women Talking, which nobody's heard of, is in the theaters. The Banshees is on HBO Max. The Triangle of Sadness is available for $6. The Fabelmans is available for $20 on Vudu and YouTube and the other.
Let me tell you what we did
services.
with the Fabelmans. We watched 45 minutes of it. Then I started to fall asleep, and we said, well, let's continue this tomorrow. Then we didn't come to it tomorrow because other stuff happened. And then the next day we said, let's watch it. And we, I think, tried to watch it the next day. And what? I mean, I've already paid $20 for this thing. It's expired.
Yeah, and you had to pay again. And expired.
I F them. I'm not seeing the Fabelmans. Screw it. Screw the Fabelmans, screw the movie, and screw Spielberg, and screw the $20.
Oh, my.
I enjoyed
Good
the
day,
Fabelmans.
sir. Good day, sir.
All Quiet on the Western Front is on Netflix. The remake of the movie from the 1920s. Elvis is on HBO Max, and Tar is available for purchase for $6. We like that,
Tar
Jim?
for the ride home. Yeah.
Yeah. Tar was excellent, I thought.
What's that one about?
Yeah.
Music conductor.
Oh, that sounds riveting.
What?
Apparently, it's really good.
How about this, Kim? Lesbian. Does that help? Does that help? A little lesbian.
I'm in. No.
All right, there you go. All right.
It's also
Jeff,
Kate
are you going to leave us with
a wonderful actress?
That's exactly right. Kate Blanchett is one of the top 5 actresses.
You want two more?
This is the game we played, Jim. We played it a little bit at the beginning. He'll just play a little bit, and in the chat, people can guess. So let's all lay back. But if you've got it, you've got it. These are various TV themes. Jefferson Graham.
Okay.
All right.
Did anybody know that?
I don't.
I
Think
can
do
almost
know
hear
that.
the words on the show tonight. Yeah.
Muppet Show.
Yeah.
Wow. The chat got it.
The chat's all over it. Yeah.
Okay. How about this one?
Somebody's guessing Family Ties.
Yeah.
Is that it? Nice, JR. Well done, JR.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
good.
Okay. Is my QR code still out there anywhere?
Let me look.
Albert.
I should have sent it ahead of time.
I don't know if we can.
No, don't see it. I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go.
There it
Right
is.
here.
Oh, look at that.
Lower
Right on the
right.
screen.
Do me a favor, everybody. Subscribe to PhotoWalks TV. It's free.
Yeah, check it out.
Anybody
You
know
can hold
this?
your phone up to that. Jeff made a I don't know.
Was that a
what is
stump the
that?
crowd today?
What was that?
Nobody knew
Anybody?
that one?
That one. John Slade says Green Acres.
No.
It's not Green Acres. Wow.
That
What is
oh
it?
so merry, Huckleberry, Huckleberry Hound.
Wow, there it is. We had one Huckleberry Hound. Handpicked
we had a
Books
couple.
YT. We had
Yeah.
2 Huckleberry Hounds.
Okay.
Wow, that's a real reach, man. I didn't remember the theme to Huckleberry
The
Hound.
greatest show in town is Huckleberry Hound for all you guys and gals.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, Huckleberry Hound, and it takes me back to those early cartoons. And I have to tell you a quick story about this guy who was on, like at the very beginning when I was just a little kid. Captain Kangaroo was the guy's name, right? Okay.
Bob
so
Keeshan.
Captain Kangaroo, Bob Keeshan, was like and I would like run to the TV to see Captain Kangaroo every morning. And he just had a great way about him, and he had all these characters, and he had et cetera. So he had a theme, and the theme would play every morning when he would come in, and he'd unlock the door, and he'd walk in, the camera would follow him, and when he'd hang up the keys, the theme would stop. And he did this day after day after day. One day, Captain Kangaroo walked into this space, and the theme is playing, and he hangs up the keys that he's just used to unlock the door, and the theme stops. And then he picks up the key ring real quick, and the theme starts again. And then he puts it back on the hook, and the theme stopped. And he did this like 4 times. And as a kid, I thought, oh my God, he's playing with whoever, like he's messing with whoever the guy is who's playing the theme, you know. Whoever that person is, this is a little thing they do. And years later, I just thought that was a fun thing. You know, I'm into themes, and even as a little kid, I just thought that was a fun little production element. Years later, he's a guest on Ron Owen's show on KGO. And I say to Ron, I have this thing that happened with Captain Kangaroo that I still remember, and I might have been 7 years old or 6 years old or whatever. And I want to ask him if so anyway, Ron gave me the hotline number. I call in to Captain Kangaroo on KGO, and I explain the situation. I ask, was that something that you deliberately did? Were you like messing with the audio guy, or was that something in the spur of the moment? Did you warn him? Do you remember this? And what did he say? I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Captain, it was the biggest moment in my little life, and you don't remember it?
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
When it comes to themes and Huckleberry Hound, once in a while, I guess stuff gets into the outfield. We don't remember them. Jeff, apparently your QR code is expired, so you may want to check on that. That's what.
Oh, really? Already?
Yeah.
I need a new one.
What? Get on that. Yes,
go to photowalkstv.com and you can sign up there. How's that?
That's terrific. Photowalks.tv.
No, photowalkstv.com.
Photowalkstv.com. Albert, how dare you? It's photowalkstv.com.
Who is
Jeff,
producing
we love
this
you. Whoever's producing this show. You are a friend of the show, and you've been so helpful to us, and we love when you stop through on Thursdays. Thank you, pal.
All right. See you next week.
Thanks
Bye,
for the
everybody.
good music.
Bye-bye, Jefferson Graham,
Bye.
everybody. Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Love it. I'm going to turn you loose to David Katz, Kim, and Jim. Katz is brilliant. You'll love jamming with him, Jim. And Jim, tomorrow, you'll have your regular spot with Michael Short, 11 o'clock, where you'll just talk politics. You can talk more about Barbara Lee, Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, the Feinstein seat. You can talk more about whatever you feel is important in politics and what's come up.
I think we need to dip into the show fund and send Jim Avila a fruit basket for all of his special appearances this week.
Great. Why don't you get that started?
Wait, is there a show fund? I don't know. I don't think
that's
so.
That's right. Exactly. I love spending money we don't have.
Yeah.
No, but we are
forget,
so grateful.
Mark, that with David Katz, you told me yesterday that he was an OJ commentator.
Oh, this is
that right?
Very key. Yes, thank you.
And he and
David
I, we need to talk about that because I was a big OJ. I covered OJ a lot, and I've kind of started my career in network.
Thank you
television.
so much, Jim. Jim covered the O.J. Simpson situation from the high-speed chase or low-speed chase all the way to the Brentwood home, all the way through the trial. Jim Avila covered that entire case. Kim, can you make sure that you guys touch on that? Because Katz was an ongoing commentator in Los Angeles. He was giving the legal analysis of the case every day and every night on television in Los Angeles. So both these guys that you're going to be with have real experience and a depth of knowledge that I think few others have on this OJ case. And it was a piece of American history and judicial history that is really unparalleled for exposing so much of what goes on within our justice system. For the rich, I'm talking about, for the privileged, the rich, the famous. So
yeah, I probably don't have to say much. I'll just lean back and let him talk OJ.
Yeah, I mean, really was it was it was. I was so glad to hear that Katz was joining at the same time Avila was for that reason.
Yeah,
I have one last acknowledgement, and then I'm going to say goodbye. Tony is working every part of the day in Los Angeles. He's working, for KFI Radio. He's working over here, building a studio. He's doing so much. And I asked him to help stitch together David Katz just to make sure Katz can make it on with a phone call. We need to loop in Tony. So I just want Tony to know, and all of you to know, how grateful we are to Tony for helping out. Hey, man, it takes a village to put this together. There he is. There's Tony.
Hey,
it takes a village
Tony.
to put it together.
Hey, before you go.
Yes.
I want to play some, put some acknowledgments on the screen because people have donated and a lot of people are sending best wishes to you and your family. So I want to make sure you get those messages. So let's take a moment to thank Jim Slayton for
Jim Slayton. Thank you.
We
thank you, Jim.
That.
Right
Kevin
on, Jim.
Hobbs for $25.
Well, Kevin Hobbs
Thank
is
you
a regular
so
Slayton. Yes, thank you so much, Kevin Hobbs. I know. Your regular supporter and viewer. Thank you.
$19.99 from Gail Guthrie, who says best wishes for your dad and hoping that he feels better. So that's
thank you, Gail. That's very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah.
Pinky Cerritos and 99-cent super sticker.
What up, Pink? Thank you. Love it.
Thank you so
That's
much.
Really, really cool. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Sally.
Sally.
With the $9.99 super sticker.
Thank you so
Sally.
much.
Thank you for the $9.99. Every little bit counts. We so appreciate
and William Gipe with a $3 super sticker. So thanks for
big shout out. What up, William Gipe? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice really words for Mark and his family. We appreciate that.
I so appreciate all of this. One of the things I hate about this whole world is that we have to have a tip jar, that we have to come to you with a hat in hand. But that said, you guys really step up and you make a great difference. So thank you, Kevin and William and Pinky and Gail and all the rest. You're really so terrific to step up.
Thank you. I give
you the thank you. All right, Avila, Katz, continue along with Kim.
Yep.
And I'll join you tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to the next hour. I'll be watching, so I'm glad that we got that notification thing taken care of. Hey, thanks, Jim. Really, from my heart, appreciate it. You too, Kim. Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Talk to you. All right.
Now that we got rid of that guy, let's get to some news here on the Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's it. I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. And yes, as we mentioned, California Congressman Adam Schiff running for the U.S. Senate now. The Democrat making his announcement on Twitter. He said, "Our democracy is at great risk." Schiff, of course, rose to prominence when he led the House Intelligence Committee for 4 years until Republicans retook the House this year, said they don't want him on it anymore. That led to him engaging in some battles with former President Trump as well. Fellow House colleague Katie Porter has already announced her run for the seat currently held by Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein here in California. She has not decided whether she'll run for another term next year, but according to Adam Schiff, he talked to her. She gave him her blessing that he announced today, but she still has not made any type of announcement. The nation's economy growing, it turns out. Yes, fourth quarter GDP went up by 2.9%, just above the number that analysts had been expecting. So that is positive news. Democrats criticizing President Biden's border policies and immigration policies, I should say. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says the White House is making it more difficult to seek asylum at the southern border. And New Jersey Senator Cory Booker said extending the pandemic-era program known as Title 42 is putting people in danger. It turns out buying a smartphone, maybe not as many people doing that right now. Yeah, smartphone sales taking a big plunge. A new report from market research firm IDC shows smartphone shipments globally fell more than 18% year over year in the fourth quarter of 2022, the biggest decline in the single quarter ever for smartphones. And Chevron putting all that money that it made off of us here in California to use. The energy giant announcing $75 billion stock buyback program that would start in April. It is unknown when it will expire. And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, you got to call the Mark Thompson Show founding and exclusive sponsor, Steve Moskowitz. He's at 888 Tax Deal. He's also at MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
It is the Mark Thompson Show, and I've got Jim Avila along for the ride. Thank you for showing me your Peabody Award. It made me feel extremely inadequate. I think I have an APTRA Associated Press, TV Press or something award, not nearly as important as yours. Yeah. For breaking coverage of the Asiana Airlines crash, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you remember that one. Yeah. And I have an award from RTNDA for team weather coverage. Big deal. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are big deals.
I know you're not impressed. It's okay. It's okay. I get it.
I am very
Mr.
impressed.
Emmy,
that was
Mr.
a wonderful,
Peabody.
wonderful newscast.
Don't embarrass me. It's already intimidating enough to do the news in front of you. Please.
That was great news. It was really good. I missed the radio part of doing. I started out in radio, but it was a very short career in radio for me. But it is one of the more liberating and friendly, fun thing to do. Because you're not held down by that big, huge camera,
It's different to doing news for a local San Francisco-based audience. Now here on this show, we've got a lot of listeners from KFI in Los Angeles. So we've got a lot of Southern California listeners. And it's so interesting. I look at a lot of people listen on the podcast, which is after the show is over here on YouTube. We put the recorded version online. So even if you can't, participate live, you can listen to it whenever. And then the sound is taken and distributed on various podcast platforms as well. So Google, Apple, Spotify. And looking at where the podcasts are being listened to from which regions, fascinating, in different countries, in many different states. So I look at where people are tuning in from, and I realize that maybe a couple local stories, works, but I have to kind of broaden the range and make sure that I've got something that's interesting for people all over the place. It's a different way of doing news. It's not how I used to do it on Station X. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you were primary on a local station. I know when I worked at KCBS, I used to anchor the morning drive on Saturday and Sunday. And they're very formatted. I don't know if they are so much anymore, but they were very formatted. And we did national news at the top with CBS, and then we did national news at the bottom. at the hour. But in between, everything else was, and the headlines certainly focused local news. And, you know, the fact that local news is going away so much in so many cities, even huge cities like San Francisco and the Bay Area, is really a shame and really a tragedy, because, you know, this whole George Santos thing, the local paper evidently did have some things in it.
Yeah.
But there was not much coverage of this total fraud. And that's, you know, part of the problem of not having good local news anymore.
Don't you think like 15, 20 years ago, they would have been all over that? Like, this guy never would have made it out of, you know, filing papers before, you know, there would have been a front page article, Santos, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, when I worked in Chicago for 15 years, I covered City Hall, and there were 2 reporters, me and the political editor, who were at City Hall every day.
Yeah. We
had reports from City Hall every day. You don't see that anymore. I mean, I live here in Los Angeles. There's nobody covering City Hall regularly now. It's really unfortunate that what's happened with local news is they cover the bright, shiny things like big traffic accidents and you know, I'm always teasing a friend of mine who anchors a morning show. Morning show about, if I went back to local news, I'd have to learn how to pronounce all the local streets and study maps, because that's what they're doing most of the time. But they don't cover things that are very important to people, unfortunately. I don't know if you do. I don't think in San Francisco they have regular City Hall reporters anymore. I don't.
Well, there used to be. I've spent my my fair share of long afternoons and evenings with my butt on a hard wooden bench and listening to the city meetings. Now, though, they make it really easy because everything's online. So you can record all the sound from city council meetings and city committee meetings as well online. And so there's really no excuse for, you know, local news agencies not to have it, except that there's no competition anymore. And the stories that attract attention might not be the ones that, you know, take a lot of man hours sitting through a city council meeting to get to the meat and potatoes there. So
David Katz is ready, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, good.
Well, let's bring him on in, because David Katz, a former U.S. attorney, joins us every week about this time, and we appreciate him being here. David Katz, welcome to the Mark Thompson Show.
Hi.
Hi. So I have to tell you, you're on with award-winning, super important, very fancy former ABC journalist Jim Avila, who also did a lot of coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial. You guys both have a little background knowledge there.
Well, I used to watch Jim all the time, of course, and it's really an honor to be on with you, Jim. And yes, I remember your coverage during O.J. We were on KCAL, Channel 9, and we did a show at 10:30. I'm sure you remember it, called O.J. Tonight. I was kind of the pro-prosecution point, and then the counterpoint was a criminal defense attorney. Of course, now I'm a criminal defense attorney myself, so how the world turns, right, Jim and Kim?
Yes.
That's right. I was in local at that time. I was at KNBC, the local station there, and we had that, and then we also had a half-an-hour program at 7 on CNBC, on the network that we did on the OJ trial. It was pretty much what launched I was local then, but it launched my network career. That's why I went to network after. A lot of people did after the OJ Simpson trial. All the things. It was such a national story, and was such in the forefront of everybody's mind. And one of the things that I asked people, David, and since you covered it, and we're working in both local news and in the local legal system here, is what did you learn? I'll tell you what I learned at the end, but when you finish. But what did you learn from the O.J. Simpson trial about our justice system?
Well, I thought that O.J. actually had a pretty fair trial. I know there's a lot of dispute about that, but you are supposed to find someone guilty beyond a reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of all 12 jurors. I suppose I was a little surprised that there weren't hung jurors, or maybe that they didn't compromise. But it shows the kind of way that jurors tend to move. You know, I've had hung juries myself, and for a criminal defense attorney, anything besides a conviction is good news, of course. And it's interesting to analyze how you end up with some of the hung jurors. So I found that interesting. I also, just to get sort of the inside baseball of it, a lot of people were very surprised it wasn't brought in Santa Monica, because there's a different demographic out there than the demographic that they got downtown. But my understanding was that Garcetti was pretty sure that if he was seen as having brought it in downtown and letting the case take its course with a downtown LA jury, that he'd be okay. And he was indeed reelected, you know, even after OJ was acquitted. And if I can tell you this great joke, I hope your audience will think it's funny. I do. So the Marines are looking for Saddam Hussein all over Iraq, and the Marines finally pull him out of a spider hole. And you know what his first words were to the Marines? Saddam, I want trial in L.A.
Yeah, LA became famous for. LA certainly became famous for letting celebrities go. What did you think about? So, you know, after I had been covering trials for quite a bit before I did OJ, and one of the big ones in Chicago where I worked was the Marquette 10, which was 10 police officers who were corrupt, and they got tried, and it was a big deal. And I covered that for a while, so I was familiar with courtroom drama and what was going on in courts. I didn't think I'd be surprised by anything. I was very surprised by the verdict. But what surprised me at the very end, which really, when people say, what did you learn from that? I did not realize, and this was my own issue, I did not realize the level of distrust between the African American community and the police department. Even though I grew up as a youngster in LA and was, you know, 10 years old when the LA riots happened, I just wasn't tuned in to the fact that almost no cops were being believed in that jury box, because they had seen years and years of corruption and years of abuse from the police department. So when a guy like Barry Scheck stands up, one of the DNA expert, and accuses police of purposely destroying evidence or hiding evidence or in some way compromising evidence on purpose, they actually accuse one of the lead detectives of taking some blood samples, DNA evidence, home. To me, that was silly when I was listening to it, but it was believed in the jury box, and I interviewed some jurors afterwards for NBC. So that was the big surprise to me, the level of distrust of the police department.
Well, I hope we can stay on this, because I had some, you know, lots of thoughts too about it, and I think they're still, you know, relevant to people today. On KCAL, when we did this OJ Tonight, I think we were considered one of the fairest stations, that we were considered right down the middle. We had Pat Harvey on. Is she still on KCBS? But she was our presenter, one of them. And we had a juror who had been dismissed from the jury, and she chose our station to come on. So I'm there. The whole news crew is there, you know, down on Melrose. And she comes in. It was right next to Paramount Studios. And she comes in, and she's going to give us an exclusive interview. And she made the famous statement that she was actually upset about the prosecution. She was upset about the police handling of it. And her famous line was, you know, they didn't give OJ time to grieve. So, of course, some people ridiculed that, you know, didn't give OJ time to grieve. If you, you know, are charged and found by a preliminary hearing to have committed double murder, things may get rolling before you have, quote, time to grieve. But there was such a different perception, I think, on the part of a lot of the Black community and what we'll call the white community, for lack of a better expression. And so there was a bit of a polarization, I think, along race lines, right, about the acceptance of the jury. And they said that when the jury came back, for people who don't remember it, that they didn't announce the verdict right away. They held it to the next morning. And they say that jury verdict the next morning was the second most watched event in the United States after the moon landing in '69. And then, you know, I have people to this day tell me I just about fainted in the beauty parlor when they announced that. Just about everybody else in the beauty parlor did too. And I always said, Was it mainly white or mainly black in the beauty parlor? So there was definitely that aspect to the case, Jim. Didn't you think? And also the views of the police. And, you know, as a criminal defense attorney, you know, I tried cases all throughout the 80s as an assistant U.S. attorney to federal juries. And that could be kind of a mixed bag because they might bring a group in from Santa Barbara. And so that group that tried the case in downtown L.A. was not a downtown L.A. jury. But I'd actually tried a case, Jim, against Johnny Cochran. He was very well known then, but before he was super famous for OJ. And I thought I had a pretty good case, and I convicted both of the defendants. But when Johnny started to make his pitch to the jury, and I looked over, there's 2 African-American jurors. Certainly his argument resonated much more. And it was, again, that the police had done something wrong. It was at the airport. It was kind of a little bit like Get Shorty, Jim. In those days where they'd bring in cocaine from Miami and they'd land in L.A. and then they'd have a little back and forth with the DEA officers or the sheriffs. Hey, what are you doing here? What kind of trip is it? Can I look in your suitcase? And people would argue that it was actually a search or it was a wrongful detention. And the police, and of course me as a prosecutor, we would argue that it was lawful under stop and frisk law and the other laws that existed at the time. But when Johnny made that argument, Jim, to the jurors, I said, oh my God, this may end up in a hung jury. It didn't. And the funny thing was that the argument was a little close to, as to his client, if the shoes don't fit, you must acquit. He didn't say those exact words, but when I heard him say, if the gloves don't fit, you must acquit, it's like, Johnny, you were working for that perfect phrasing in my trial. You didn't find the perfect phrasing, but you sure did for OJ in the OJ trial.
Yeah, he was a force of nature. I think that, and just to illustrate your point, I remember in local news and network news on the day of the verdict, on this very watched verdict, split screens all over the place, and the split screen of a white audience in one place and an African American audience in another, and the reactions were totally different. The African American audience was ecstatic and was cheering, and I'm thinking, you know, this is a murder case, and the white audiences were stunned. We saw this through. I think this is the first time, at least, that I really noticed seeing our judicial system in such starkly different places and perception as far as whites and versus blacks. And it's because of, I've come to know, and now I've thought about it a lot and reported on it. It's because the justice system, unfortunately, I know you've been part of it and you can push back, but I think it's pretty clear that the justice system has in fact treated African Americans and minorities in general, Hispanics as well, and to some extent Asians, differently than whites are treated. And I think that really came in focus with the O.J. Simpson trial.
Well, here in Los Angeles, there were about 40 or 50 criminal assistant U.S. attorneys in the mid-'80s. And we had a stretch where not one was African American. Not one of the assistant U.S. attorneys was African American. What we had in those days, and this is sort of interesting, we had some incredibly talented Hispanic American assistant U.S. attorneys. Most of them were bilingual. I'm actually bilingual myself, although I learned Spanish, by being really good in school and going to Mexico and Spain. I didn't learn it, en la cuna. I didn't learn it, at home from my parents. But these folks had, and of course they had these cases. We had the Camarena case back in those days. So we had some really high-profile cases against what you now call the cartel. But if you looked at the cases that we had, especially where we interfaced with the African-American community, it was the Reagan era. I wasn't the one who set the policies of the Reagan administration. People would be shocked to learn. I was a young assistant U.S. attorney in that office. But the cases were just, there would be a lady who would keep taking her mom's Social Security benefits after her mom had passed away. And we would prosecute that person, right? After a year of taking her deceased mom's Social Security benefits. We had people who took money out of the postal trucks. On the third, they would deliver the checks. In those days, it wasn't direct deposit, it was the checks. So on the third, we had what were called the Jeep clouts. and we would go after people. And there were a lot of, African American defendants in those cases. And it seemed like some of the more significant cases, like the Milken case came along. We didn't do Milken, although it was right in Beverly Hills. That Drexel Michael Milken case was brought in New York City, where they bring a lot of the big financial cases. And I was always asking, well, why don't we bring it here? We're right here. And so there were different divisions of labor. I don't mean to get too inside baseball, but it was very interesting. And I could certainly see where, people in the African-American community, we had the Rodney King case too. And of course, you could see Rodney King getting beaten over 50 times on videotape. Yeah. And even so, there was a bit of a racial divide thinking about that case. And then, of course, the cops were first prosecuted out in Simi Valley. Then they were brought down here in New York. They were brought down here in Los Angeles. They were finally convicted in Los Angeles. But after they were acquitted in Simi Valley, of course, then we had the riots. We had those awful riots in, 1992. So that was the era that we're talking about.
Right. It was a very divisive area. And then just one more question on this, Kim, and then you can go on to other stuff. But I did want to find out what you thought was the key moment was it the closing argument from Johnny Cochran and if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit? Was it the big mistake of Chris Darden and Marcia Clark allowing them to give OJ the gloves to try to fit, even though the gloves themselves had been through processes that probably shrunk them? Was it Mark Furman? Was there anything in particular you felt that was the deciding factor?
Well, Jim, you've done a great job. I think you've summarized the three key moments. When you do an in-court demonstration, it's always fraught, especially when you're the prosecutor, because you have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So a demonstration like that goes in the defendant's favor is really hard to recover from. And the jurors are going to remember, of course, that moment, right, when the gloves didn't fit and when he was trying to pull them on and showing his exasperation that they just didn't fit. Why was this? And, of course, by extension, it was this innocent, black man being railroaded in court and being forced to try on these. It brought back all the things, all the way back to, defendants who were, gagged and not allowed to speak in court, the famous Chicago 7 that I grew up with, when I was in high school reading about. That is a little bit of ancient history for a lot of your audience, but super interesting. And they made a movie about the Chicago 7 trial a couple of years ago, which is fantastic if people haven't seen it. But anyway, I think that the closing argument was very effective by Cochran. I myself didn't think that the prosecutors did a really bad job. I mean, I thought that they did quite well. I thought Marcia Clark did quite well. She was she got to be in a little bit of an uphill battle, but I thought that, she this is a terrible expression to use about the case, but she acquitted herself well. Of course, it was OJ who got acquitted. And I do think that the Mark Furman, showing someone in a lie like that, if he'd lie about that, he'd lie about other things. Maybe they really were lying about the blood analysis. Maybe they really were lying about taking different items home. And then, of course, you can't discount the fact that OJ was one of the most famous, at that time, most revered athletes. He had the Hertz commercial, I think, very shortly before that trial started. And it was interesting that he became a symbol for what he became a symbol for, because a lot of people joked about the fact that, he was so assimilated. If you were going to talk about one African-American person who was really assimilated into the white world, it was OJ. Having said that, of course, you could see on television that it was a black man who was on trial. And I think people had reactions to that. So I think all of those things played a big part. And I think that Judge Ito, he took a lot of criticism at the time, but I think he gave a fair trial. I think he let in things that, the defendant has to be given a fair trial. When there's things that are more prejudicial than probative, they really should be kept out. And we see some of these high-profile murder cases right now, and it's very tempting to say, well, let him throw in the kitchen sink. But if it just shows that the defendant's a bad guy or has done some things that we don't like, if it's not really relevant to guilt or innocence, it should be kept out because it's more prejudicial than probative. So I think that Ito's calls in general were quite good in the case. And the last thing, if people haven't seen it, was the dancing Itos on Jay Leno's show at the time was one for the ages, the dancing Itos.
One thing this conversation does is bring back all those images of the trial that, I mean, people were watching that. That was one of the first trials, I think, that was broadcast live for the world to see.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point.
Yes.
Yeah, the people got to see that, and I think that was important. One of the things that
people had withdrawal.
Jim,
people had withdrawal. It was like when The Sopranos finally went off the air, or Seinfeld or something, and people were moping around like that was what they watched during the day. What were they going to do with themselves? Now there were people who had that reaction. It was so popular and so ubiquitous on TV.
David makes one good point.
Go ahead.
One little quick point. I'm sorry, Kim, I'll turn it back to you. One quick point I wanted to amplify was the fact that OJ may have been acquitted because in my opinion, because the African American jury saw justice differently because of their experience. But it's interesting, as you point out, OJ Simpson was probably the whitest person in that room. OJ Simpson was not a part of the community. In fact, was criticized quite a bit about the fact that he did not help out his community, and most of his friends were at the golf course and were not as anybody in the community. So it was ironic that it would be that he would benefit from and he was treated as a friend by the Los Angeles Police Department. They let him slide on many things, including the beating of his wife, and let him slide on all kinds of traffic incidents and things like that. And so he was a friend of the cops, certainly not somebody who was being persecuted by the cops. Sorry, Kim.
Well, I should also point out that the law changed quite a bit just based on that case, because as Kim said, people were watching it in such minute detail, televised. People had very strong opinions. And so this idea that someone calling 911, that could be manufactured, you can invent a lot of stuff. Even in 10 seconds to call 911, you could make up a whole story to try to get your spouse. It was considered hearsay unless it was truly an excited utterance, and you had to show why it was truly spontaneous and excited. That got abandoned pretty much.
Oh, no, I think we lost David Katz. Yep, I don't hear him. Do you hear him, Jim?
No.
Yeah, he dropped.
One thing that thank you to David Katz for coming on the show today, and I appreciate it. It's funny, I joked with Mark that I could sit back and not say very much, and it turned out to be true. But one thing I will say is that a lot of times people have really strong opinions about legal cases, and I always say, well, you can't really judge what the jury did because you weren't sitting there listening to every piece of evidence that came through. You weren't, in that room looking over the documents and doing all those things. But in the O.J. Simpson case, we all really were. We were all like the jury together, but that's the first time that, you got to be part of that, unless you'd been on a jury before. The first time for most people that we got to really did have an informed opinion at the end of all this, because we got to see all the evidence in the case.
Yeah. And it was nonstop on the news.
Yeah.
We at the NBC station, the local station in Los Angeles, we carried the whole thing live. And preempted all network programming in the daytime. Yeah. All the soaps were run in the middle of the night so that people could catch up to them. And I sat there next to our anchor people and did the analysis for the entire time. In fact, one of the interesting things I'll point out is that, so I was in Los Angeles as a reporter in KNBC for 2 years. I got there in 94, left in 96. There was an earthquake in 94 at Northridge. I covered that. And then pretty much right after that was the O.J. Simpson was the murder. And I was called to Brentwood, and I covered that until I left. That was
the universe served you up some big stories. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. No, that was all we covered.
David Katz, you're back just in time for me to bid you farewell. But thank you for all that information. Such a good segment with you today. So interesting to hear you guys talk about your experiences covering that trial.
It was great to be on with you. As soon as I said spectacular anomalies, I went out. So I guess that's a good line. It was wonderful to be with you, Jim and Kim. Jim and Kim, just great.
That's right. We're going to start our own show.
Great catching up with you.
Yeah, thank you, David Katz. We will see you next week. Looking forward to it. Our appreciation to David Katz for coming on the big program. All right, we're going to do just a touch of news, an abbreviated newscast, because we have Belinda Weymouth with It's the Planet Stupid waiting in the wings, and she's got a big story to tell us about. So let's do just a touch of news. I'll attempt to do this in front of my big news guy over here and see how that works out for us all. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Top Democrats calling on the Federal Trade Commission to investigate a company that they say is marketing a small rifle to children. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer accusing We Won Tactical of breaking the law in its advertising of the JR-15 rifle. Schumer said this rifle should not see the light of day, given the epidemic of youth gun violence and mass shootings. New bankruptcy documents reveal thousands of creditors who are owed money from FTX, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan, two of the major creditors being listed in the 116-page document filed yesterday, also included media companies like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. The medical team who treated Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin after he suffered on-field cardiac arrest, getting the key to the city in Cincinnati. Hamlin collapsed after making a routine tackle during Week 17, the game against the Bengals. The mayor there honoring the team at the University of Cincinnati Health Center for their efforts, not only helping save Hamlin, but he says what they do every day for all of the patients. There are 9 Palestinians dead after Israeli forces raided the West Bank city of Jenin. That according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. New York Times reporting Israeli troops and armed Palestinians engaged in a gun battle during that raid. Caltrans seeking millions of dollars to help clear homeless encampments across the state of California. The California Department of Transportation requesting more than $20 million over the next 2 years to help them remove hazardous material from encampments on its properties. A story out of Cal Matter shows California, with all of its very strict environmental laws, apparently California government agencies and businesses have transported hazardous waste right over the state border to states with weaker environmental laws and regulations, dumping that hazardous material at regular municipal waste landfills. That is a story we will hear more about with Belinda Weymouth in It's the Planet Stupid in just a moment. And I will tell you, Avatar, The Way of Water, is now the 5th highest grossing film of all time. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, you got to call Steve Moskowitz. He's at 888 Tax Deal. He's also online. You can find him at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
It is the time to talk about the environment, something we should all care about. Jim Avila, please join me in welcoming Belinda Weymouth to the show.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Well, I'm super well, but this story from Cal Matters that came out yesterday, Kim, it's horrible. So egregious and awful that California is doing this.
Well, here we are, Belinda, leading the way.
Yeah.
We're like the stewards of the environment. We're the champions. We're the state that's going to have, only new car sales be electric by 2035. We're slapping all the solar panels on our homes. We have all these regulations and we're supposed to be the leaders. And it turns out maybe we're not really, we're with one hand the leader and with the other hand, shoving the toxic waste but right behind us. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty dirty secret. I mean, pun totally intended. The fact that we're sending the worst of our toxic waste, out of state. We've only got 2 facilities that, these sort of specialized facilities to deal with it here. And, Cal Matters did this 4-month investigation into, what California is actually doing. And yes, we sort of, tout ourselves as, this environmental leader. And we're really seen like that, not just in the US, worldwide. I mean, the EU came here to see how we were doing, our carbon pricing and, carbon credits. And, because it was, when we decided that we were going to deal with, carbon emissions from utility plants, it worked here. It worked better than what the EU was doing. But as far as the waste goes, so the crazy thing is, we've got these really, really strict laws. And the federal government came out with laws in the 70s, this is, what's the baseline of, for, toxic waste. And then we came out with more stringent laws in 92 when we had Governor Brown. Now, just 1 year before, Pete Wilson, as the governor, was signing a pact with other Western governors to say, hey, let's keep our toxic waste within states. Let's not export it to other states. But as soon as we had these really stringent laws, we had way more toxic waste. And the truth is we need to clean it up. It's bad. We don't want people living near DDT. The Vernon community in LA County, they're right by the Exide battery recycling plant. That's super toxic. We need to protect those people. But, to do it at the expense of these other states that have less, they're just going by the federal, guidelines of what's toxic. And when we take it to Arizona and Utah, we're just putting it in it's just going into a regular municipal landfill.
They don't do anything special with it. And we're talking, as you mentioned, DDT. Also, I was reading the asbestos from homes going in, other toxic chemicals as well. And it's supposed to be in California handled one way. But in one case in the Southern California, they took it like 130 miles across the border and just dumped it in a regular dump. And this isn't the only case.
Yeah. Well, look, since 2010, we have taken 10 million tons to these, mainly these two sites. So the one up in Utah where, it's only 133 miles away. We're taking, shredded auto detritus, we're taking DDT, and the lengths that they're going to wash the trucks and clean them to get ready for them to actually leave to drive in a little bit of California before they cross the border, and the awful thing is, we have this state our own watchdog group, which is called the Department of Toxic Substances Control, the DTSC. They're one of the biggest out-of-state dumpers. They're busy overseeing and managing all these, environmental remediation projects. And meanwhile, they're busy taking all this stuff, to other states. And so the stuff that goes to Utah, it gets taken to this, it's called La Paz County, and it's the Colorado River Indian tribe. Their reservation is exactly 5 miles away, as is the small town Parker City. And, there's not the kind of oversight that should be happening. So it's, terrible NIMBYism, not in our backyard, but hey, it's fine to take it over, the border and dump it in your backyard. I have to say one thing that's really, so Nevada and Oregon, they both have laxer toxic standards than California. But what they cleverly did was they said, oh, if it's too toxic for California, then it's too toxic for us. So they don't get the waste, but Utah and Arizona do. And there's one landfill that it goes to in southern Arizona, very close to the Mexican border. There's an organic date farm, like right over the fence, within 100 yards of this landfill. There's, our organic dates are being, grown. So it's, it's not good. And it really reminds me of what we've been doing for years, and not just the US, the whole world. When we were sending all our plastic to China for them to recycle, and we were turning parts of China that were these sort of bucolic rural areas into dystopic cesspits because they were dealing with, just, tons and tons of our worst, cheapest plastic that they ended up burning because you couldn't recycle it, and you can only create waste that you can deal with locally. I mean, that's the thing we're learning from plastics. And I get what the problem with this is. All this toxic waste is, from bygone, industries and things. And now we're playing catch up with getting rid of it. And we are talking about, yes, we have to deal with it in California, but we're not actually making the effort to do that. We're still shipping it to these other states.
There's so much about this story that outrages me. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead, because you haven't had a chance to chime in on this one.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about it. I mean, my understanding is that this whole recycling of plastics is pretty much a hoax.
Yes.
My son is a documentarian, and he's currently making a documentary on recycling and how what a hoax much of it is, unfortunately, because we're so diligent in making sure we put everything in these bins, but there is, and tell me if I'm wrong, and my understanding is we shouldn't be using plastic, period, because there's no way to recycle it. It's not being used. Newspapers, yes. Cardboard, yes. But plastic is just not, there's no way to do it.
Yeah, well, recycling plastic is bogus. Yes, it's awful. And, when we were sending it to China, we would keep the onshore, on-site, American recyclers would take the very highest quality of the plastic waste that you could actually, and it's not recycling. So this is the thing, Jim, and this is probably what your son talks about. We downcycled it. You don't make it into an equivalent product. You downcycle it into a lesser product. But when we sent it to China, I mean, I remember reading about workers holding on to a piece of plastic, Chinese workers, no protective clothing, no masks, no nothing. And they couldn't tell what the plastic was. And so what they would do, they would take a lighter and they would light the plastic. And as it was burning, they would smell it to work out what type of plastic it was and where it should go.
Oh,
and,
awful.
Yeah, I mean, you burn plastic and you create dioxin, which is, the worst carcinogen, out there. And a lot of it just gets incinerated. And when China said no more foreign garbage, the Western world, which, we like to keep, our backyard clean, but we don't care about, sending it to, a developing country. We were pushing Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, all these other countries, in that region. We were saying, hey, we've got all this plastic waste. Would you like it? And they had seen what happened in China, and they said, no, thanks, Western countries. You keep that yourself. We really
I think some of it is still going to some of these developing countries. In fact, I probably shouldn't say this, but part of my son's documentary, which is not yet out but is being still done, is they use trackers. They put trackers in the recycling bins, and were able to track it where it was landing up. And within days, supposedly was in these recycling bins out by Target or one of these stores. And they tracked it, and it was going, number one, within a couple of days, right on into a landfill, into landfills, just like every other trash.
Then what's the point?
And secondly, there is no point to. And the second place was they were going on boats. They're still going on these ships to places like Malaysia. It's just it's a crime, and what we have to do, really, at least my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Belinda, is not use plastic. We just got to stop.
Yes, we need to really, really, really think and try to curtail our plastic use. It's so difficult because so much stuff comes in it. I mean, I for a while was making my own yogurt because I was like, I just can't bear to be buying, yogurt that comes in plastic containers. But to avoid plastic, that takes a lot of work. I mean, I buy my milk in a glass bottle and I recycle that. What's the top made of? Plastic. So yes, we do need to be curtailing it. But here's the thing, Jim. This is not about us as the consumers. Unilever, Coca-Cola, they are absolutely aware of where their plastic is ending up and how many billions of bottles, plastic bottles is it that Coca-Cola is producing every year. And here's the thing. I've mentioned this on the show before, EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. Coca-Cola, Nestle, all these companies that sell, water in a bottle, that's ridiculous. We have water in our taps. You don't need water in a bottle that, by the way, is less regulated than your tap water. But their responsibility ends as soon as that bottle of water goes across the counter and you pay the money. All they take is profit, and they don't have to do anything about the recycling. So, and then it's up to municipalities and us as the taxpayer, we pay for recycling. But if you start making these big corporations who are just, banking all this money, if you make the recycling part of their responsibility, which it absolutely should be, we all know the plastic is ending up in landfills, it's ending up in oceans. One of the things when you go to Indonesia, you're on these beautiful islands. I was there a couple of years ago, actually, about the plastic pollution crisis. And, here you are, you're on the Flores Island where the Komodo dragons are. I was reading about it the other day. The New York Times was saying, you've got to go here. It's amazing, see these Komodo dragons. And it is. But what happens is you get off the boat and the beach is covered in plastic.
No.
And these are countries that don't have a robust waste management system like we do. But the other day, I was down at El Segundo. There was plastic all over the beach. There's more than we can deal with, as your son's documentary, is showing you, and via him. We absolutely have to cut down on it. The problem is right now, plastics manufacturing is going in the other direction. They're getting ready to make more and more and more of the stuff. So we have to push our governments, push our elected officials, and say, hey, charge Nestle and charge, Coca-Cola. Stop making us pay for it.
It's interesting because we had a comment from Randy who doesn't think it's possible, who says, sure, let's just ban plastic use in all products, like that's going to work out. Is there a world where we can do without plastic? Are we so reliant on it now that it's, we're stuck with it? Like we're going to just use it because it's easy and convenient and cheap without regard to the environment?
Well, look, the thing is, as we've talked about, on the show before, we're ingesting our own plastic waste now. It's in, designer beers, it's in our salt, it's found in our feces. It's found in babies. It's crazy, that we're, consuming our own waste. And the thing about plastic is that, say for medical equipment, I don't see, sort of a viable alternative. But one of the things that, plastics, reduction, activists talk about is it's not, so you have to have extended producer responsibility, but you also have to be manufacturing plastic that is 100% recyclable. So actually better quality plastic so that it actually can be a circular production loop that, it goes into use, it's used, and then it's able to be recycled into another plastic object of equal value. And that means not producing, this, how sometimes now those water bottles there, you can just crush them in your hand. They're so flimsy. But what all conservationists talk about is this circular economy. It's been linear so far. It's extraction, manufacturing, consumption, and then you just throw the product away at the end. Like if you look at something like aluminium, I think it's 70% of all the aluminium mined and turned into a can or whatever is still in use because it's 100% recyclable, like glass. So I don't think we can go to a world where we use, only glass and only aluminium. But, with a company like Seventh Generation, that talks about how we're preserving the world for the seventh generation. Okay, so you've got a great big bottle of laundry detergent, I should better take that into whatever store I got that laundry detergent from, and there should be a big container of it, and I should better refill my container. Yeah. And the refilling thing, that also takes time. Like, Jim, there are people, and I don't know if your son interviewed them, but, there's this family who live up in Northern California, and they don't use any plastic, but she spends all day shopping, because she takes wax paper to get her cheese put in. And, they're really making this concerted effort. But what they're showing you is it's sort of, it's going back to, how our great grandparents did it. And it's really time consuming if you want to avoid it.
There are some, I mean,
and I think
go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to point out, to what you're saying, one of our viewers here, Randy, is saying to me, Jim, you go first, throw out everything you're in your home that's plastic. Well, it isn't an all or nothing situation. You can affect these companies, I believe. This is my belief. You don't have to totally shut down, but if you cut back on buying the products that are packaged in plastic, I do, Randy, I do, when I go to the store, I do my best. I don't buy any bottled water that's in plastic. I don't buy, that's a huge thing. I don't buy soft drinks or anything like that that's in plastic. Can I avoid it totally? No, you can't.
Right.
But you can cut back. And even if you don't shut them out totally, a percentage decrease is going to hurt those companies, and they're going to send a message. So don't give up, I guess is what I'm saying.
I was just going to say that my husband, who makes the kids' lunches in the morning, has changed now from putting the sandwiches in plastic baggies to wrapping them in wax paper. That's something so easy to do. And like you said, Jim, we're not going to get rid of it, but we can limit it. Right. So, I mean, just taking steps to do a couple things to limit it is better. And it's funny, Belinda, I always think when I'm doing the dishes in the evening and avoiding, I have things that stay in the sink to hand wash, all the plastic stuff, right? And things that go in the dishwasher. And I always wonder if you can tell people who get it, who know that plastic is toxic at those higher temperatures, who take steps to avoid that, by the people that put plastic in the dishwasher versus the people who don't.
Sorry, what do you mean? Like that you have an awareness that plastic is toxic when it's hot?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, think about, putting, food that's in hot plastic and then eating it. And, you shouldn't put oil into plastic because oil, interacts with the plastic and creates, estrogenic chemicals. So, bad for men. Never buy oil that's in, a plastic bottle if you want your, the men around you to remain, vital and, virile. I mean,
virile, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
You hear that, Jim?
Yeah, Jim, no olive oil, no oil in plastic. But, when I go to the supermarket, I don't use any plastic bags. I mean, I put all my produce just into the cart and I pick it up and I put it onto the conveyor belt, when I'm paying at the, the register. And I had a guy once go, "Oh my God, look at your cart." And he pulled his girlfriend over to have a look. And he said, "Look at how she's shopping, no plastic bags." And I've had people look at my cart and go, "Oh, it's so beautiful," because it's an array of, fruit and vegetables. And his girlfriend took one look at it and said, "Oh, I'd never do that." She just wasn't interested. And the other thing, when people call me up and say, "What can I use as an alternative to plastic bags?" I always say, well, don't you have a lot of plastic bags already in your house? Does your bread come in a plastic bag? Reuse that bag. Reuse that bag as many times as you possibly can. Take it back to the, the grocer. But here's the thing, guys. This is great on a personal, level, and we should be aware as consumers, but we really have to push for legislation because it has to be bigger than us. And we have got fantastic legislation happening in California. They're about to ban polystyrene, which is unrecyclable. And polystyrene, by the way, is not just the big white foamy stuff that, your packages arrive in. It's also, those Solo cups, those red Solo cups that everyone uses for, those are polystyrene. So those are completely unrecyclable. And, Ben Allen, thank you, Ben Allen, who's super aware about the plastic crisis. He has, got this legislation, and we are going to, I can't remember what year it's taking effect, but, there's going to be no more polystyrene in California. And this is the direction we need to be going, because we may be taking our toxic waste to other states, but one of the other things that we're exporting are better environmental practices, and one of them is definitely around our plastic use. And I see we're totally out of time.
I know. I just saw that. The show is over. This is it. Belinda Weymouth, I could talk to you all day and listen to you say aluminium over and over again. Thank you so much for being with us on the Mark Thompson Show and for talking about the environment, something we need to think about. I'll see you again next week. I look forward to it.
Yeah. See you then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Jim Avila, we have a couple people to thank before we check out. Luis has kicked in $19.99 to the Mark Thompson Show effort. Here's to you, Jim. You rock. Kim and Jim.
Thank you so much.
That's right. We are awesome. Thank you very much, Luis. I appreciate that. And Luis, another $19.99. Best wishes to Mark Thompson. I hope your dad feels better soon. We are all
Thank you for your
kindness, Luis. Very much appreciated. Also, thank you to Daryl Leffler, $4.99. So appreciate your donation.
Thank you so much.
You can always donate via the super sticker here on YouTube at themarkthompsonshow.com. The Patreon and PayPal updates are ready to roll for you there. And thank you for clicking the like button. Smash it with your iron rod, baby, because we need that
with your iron rod.
That's right. And thank you, Jim Avila, and everyone here in the chat, and all the guests for being here today. David Katz, Belinda Weymouth, and Jim Avila for sitting in as co-host yet again. You're awesome.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. And as Mark Thompson says, see you tomorrow, everybody. Bye-bye.